Please welcome to the TEDx Sonoma County stage, James H. Carrott.
Takes a moment. All right, I can see it all. Hello. We are living in the future. Right, so I'm James Carrott, as the slide says, or at least I hope so, otherwise I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm here to tell you how playing with the past can help us find our souls again. But my slides are not showing up. And therefore my soul is still lost. But I have a cup of tea, so that's good, or water. I can wait for those, or I can start talking. Well, one day a few years ago, my friend Brian, who's a futurist for Intel, and I had a couple beers. Scooch. Oh, you know what? I'm supposed to control the slides. Technology. Beer. So we had a couple beers. And we talked, like a futurist and a historian do, which is a lot, and in a lot of different tenses. And over those beers, we were talking a lot about this. Not how messy my apartment is, or how awful a photographer I am, or how obsessed I seem to be with Apple devices, but the proliferation of screens and digital technology, the fact that our culture is turning into bits. And, you know, we asked ourselves, well, how are people making sense of all of this? Well, I've been watching steampunk for a while. I hang out on the cultural fringe. It's more fun there. And I suggested that people were coping by doing things like this. Building 3-story houses that drive. This is the Never Was Hall. Sometimes it breaks down. Then you have to haul the haul. It's a thing. But it does drive, usually. Making ray guns out of old drills and hair dryers. Inventing extremely useful new gadgets. I mean, who doesn't need one of these? And putting robots into history books. Now, how many of you know that boilerplate, a self-aware intelligent automaton, was unveiled at the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893 in Chicago? Hmm? Okay, not surprising, he got lost in the shuffle. His creators commented that they discovered a new irony of the modern age, that a wonderment among wonderments is no wonderment at all. Does that sound familiar? Well, so Brian and I decided we were onto something, and we went and wrote a book. And in doing that, we traveled around the world, talked to a lot of people about steampunk, people who were related to it, and touching the scene, people who weren't. And trying to figure out what this thing was all about, why it was going on now, and why so many of us seem to want to run our 21st century software on 19th century hardware. I can't resist it, so, you know, that was one thing. Well, here's one reason. All the while we started seeing the steampunk stuff popping up everywhere. And I kept wondering why this and why now. And it occurred to me, I was reading my friend Mark Thompson's book, Henry Hoke's Guide to the Misguided. Useful book. And it occurred to me that we look for particular historical truths at particular times, at particular depths. And this depth, the steampunk depth, this 19th century depth, resonates particularly well with now. These people were dealing with a lot of the same problems that we are. Information overload, pressure of time, trains, all of a sudden you have to synchronize your watches, light bulbs, you have to work all night, 3 mail deliveries a day, all this paper, it's information overload. Right? So there's a sympathy and a resonance there. So it didn't surprise us that this stuff started to become more popular. Justin Bieber came out with a steampunk video in 2011. Santa Claus is coming to town. You can see it on YouTube. That sort of caught us a little off guard, but it kept building until we got to things like this. After Forbes announced that IBM's supercomputer had predicted that steampunk was the next big thing, it showed up on Glee, mocked as the next big thing. It's also been in, this is Tori Spelling's wedding show. She did a steampunk wedding for a couple, and Tori actually kind of got it. It's been on America's Next Top Model. Tyra didn't get it. It's even on my freaking Domino's pizza box. Now, this is a mashup of 19th century aesthetic with 21st century technology. And that's not Facebook's new logo, although it probably should be. And so this stuff resonates, right? But what purpose does it serve? Because, cultural stuff does have a purpose. It does that. And in answer to that question, I actually found in a non-steampunk place, in a William Gibson novel, pattern recognition. And the key bit to this is, right up here, this whole idea of jet lag. Our souls can't move that quickly, and are left behind, and must be awaited upon arrival, like lost luggage. Right. We've lost our luggage. Our technology has gone so fast, so far, that we have to find a way of getting our souls back to it, of reconnecting. And we have some ways of doing that. One of the biggest ones is this, is history. Now, this is me going through the TSA checkpoint at SeaTac on my way here. Not really designed for steampunks, but we use the old to anchor the new. We tell stories. History helps us understand who we are. It lays out the mental landscape of possibility. And when the straight stuff doesn't do the job, you've got to make some stuff up. Take your mustache out for a cup of tea in the desert, right? Think about things differently. Steampunk is something that you do. It's an action. It's a tweak of the nose at mainstream culture, and it's a way of reminding ourselves that we're still the same ridiculous apes we've always been, even though we have all this fancy new stuff. And not just that, but it can also teach us better history. I mean, Frank Reed's electric carriage here. This is an invention out of dime novels. But put in the context of the picture of these bisons, this is no longer a picture of nature. This is a picture of the conquest of the West. This is actually better history because of the little lie up here. It's something more true because it's not. Well, so it's all well and good to punk the past, but you got to do it responsibly. Think about what's back there, right? These are scissors that we're using. We can cut a beautiful snowflake out of paper, or we can put our eye out. So don't run with scissors. Be careful with the past. All right, so I found some more answers at the Key West Literary Seminar. And this is a gathering in Florida of literary luminaries, and they were having their focus last year was on literature of the future. But if you'll notice, this isn't just the future, this is the past. They get it. And the trick is, and this is what was the most interesting thing about this point, is it turns out the most interesting thing about steampunk isn't steampunk at all. It's the underlying things. It's this bigger question about the difference between the past and the future. And it turns out, actually, they're not really all that different. Both the past and the future are provinces of the human imagination. They're places that we play with in our heads. And that gives us a lot of opportunity. So how many of you feel like have felt at all like you're living in the future over the course of the past? Anybody? Okay, maybe it's just me. I feel like Dick Tracy every time I call my kids on the phone, FaceTime. And I hear often people feel like they're living in the future. And this is a comment that one of the readers made. A poet was coming up, reading off of her phone. Well, hopefully you won't notice because we're living in the future. So we've got these tools, and we're able to look, this is the stage from that event. We're able now to sort of look at culture from the inside out. We're able to take a look at the guts of the future, be inside the clock, and have a sense that we have some control over it, some feel. We're driving some of this. Here, we don't have control. These are mill children photographed by Louis Hine in 1908. This is scary stuff. And after a couple world wars, a depression, a nuclear bomb, we got to the point where we started to wonder, I think, is technology going to kill us? Because it did, and a lot of these kids got killed. And so where do we find hope? Well, here, right? You add boilerplate to this picture, and all of a sudden, hope is added to despair. All of a sudden, there's a note of humor, a smile, and a sense of possibility of change. So another way to do it is just to stand up, right? Imagination and hope go hand in hand. And don't doubt it, steampunk can change the world. Here's another way, designing alternatives. This is the iSlate. It's in development in the advanced research shed of Mark Thompson's Institute of Backyard Studies in South Australia. This is real Australian slate with the slot for your chalk underneath here. I'm not sure what these fruit are over here, but this is clearly the future of pocket communication. Or things like this, the random excuse generator. And this was built by Henry Hoke in probably early 20th century, late 19th century. It's a little hard to tell. Things that published about him say 19 blah, right? It turns refined bull dust, a physical substance, into language, an excuse that you can use to get out of other things. So this actually worked when it was made, Mark explained to me. And this is something that made more sense to me than any history book that I had read in graduate school. He said, this kind of thing worked in the past. Our own logic now has confounded us. There are things that are simply beyond the comprehension, the conception of the 21st century mind. So in some ways, we've rationalized and reasoned ourselves out of more possibility than we know. And if that sounds like a load of balls, well, Henry Hoke made those too. People have been hacking things forever. I mean, this whole part of taking things apart and fixing them, this is a hack that we discovered that somebody had done in the 1920s on an old pair of headsets. So this is Prince Albert in the can of a headset, right, to repair the diaphragm. So the impulse to build, fix, and create isn't constrained to steampunk. It's a part of being human. You can hack a solar eclipse, right? You got the right lenses. The guy next to you's got some extra brass from his ray guns. But ultimately, and here's the punchline, because frankly my time has run a little over due to my technical difficulties of not knowing that I had the slides. This is what steampunk lets us do. Right here. Imagine. Challenge possibility. Make a difference. There's the laws of physics. There's established historical research, blah, 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 blah. What if? What if? And that's, to my mind, the real question. What kind of future do you want to live from? It's a question my co-author, Brian David Johnson, asks. We've also learned to ask follow-up. What kind of past do you want to be from? This is the past I want to be from. I got to drive the house. It's cool. It's like driving a house. Low turning radius, but fun. In any case, thank you. That's how to get in touch with me. If you want to take a look at any of the pictures these lovely people have done, there they are. And I appreciate your time.